join me in welcoming our new hot leader, Michele Ozumba.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much, Lee. One of the best things about this job is actually working with Lee and for Lee, because she's just been a rock of support and wisdom and guidance herself. And I can't thank her and Ana Oliveira enough as co-chairs for their leadership and for all the way in which the board has welcomed me into the family. So I thank you, Lee, and thank all the board members for your support. Before I get into my remarks, I want to you'll see on the screen many of our sponsors, and because I mentioned it last time, we had a little party last night, but not everyone was here, and I want to take time to really acknowledge our sponsors whose support we really value. Presenting sponsors this year are Bank of America Merrill Lynch, the California Wellness Foundation, JP Morgan Chase, and Southwest Airlines, without whom we could not have a lot of our people here. Our silver sponsors are iPass, the Ms. Foundation for Women, the New York Women's Foundation, Women's Foundation of California, and the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. Our bronze sponsors are Catalytic Women, a new friend of ours, and Foundation for Women as well. In-kind partners Coba, Eileen Fisher, Green Planet Beverages, Global Giving, Ms. Magazine, Sustain and Heal, World Pulse. And some of our sponsors have booths outside in the marketplace, so I invite you to visit their tables and to please join me in giving them a real warm thanks of appreciation. Thanks. Thank you all. So let me begin. A year ago in Brooklyn, I was introduced as the new Chief Program Officer for WFN. Today, as the new President and CEO, I'm deeply honored to welcome you all to our 28th annual conference. And I do want to thank the search committee and the board of directors for their confidence in my ability to lead this amazing, amazing organization at this important time in our history. Thank you all for choosing to spend the next 3 days here in Los Angeles with us. I'm so excited and optimistic about our future, and I hope that our time together will inspire the same enthusiasm for all the promise and possibilities for this amazing network to be a powerful force for social change and justice for women everywhere in the world. While this is our 28th conference and convening, this is our very first summit. And it was an intentional decision to call this year's convening a summit. The board of directors and our planning committee from the member funds I mentioned earlier wanted to signify our desire to strengthen our network mindset so that we can work toward a common agenda for large-scale social impact. I believe this is essential to propel our movement forward. So let me begin by congratulating all of you, not only for making it all the way to the West Coast, but for the 28 years that this network has been toiling in the vineyards of progressive social change for women and girls around the world. At 28 years old, I think we can safely say we now have reached adulthood. And as anyone who has raised children knows, we have different expectations of our adult children than when they were adolescents, and certainly from when they were school-age days. So I begin by asking, what is the state of our network at 28 years old? Do we have a clear vision for our future? Have we acquired all the skills and assets necessary to achieve our goals and realize our vision? Do we have the confidence, clarity of purpose, and sheer doggedness to wage a relentless campaign for social justice for women and girls everywhere? Most importantly, do we have a shared vision for what success looks like for our network of women's funds? I invite you to ponder these questions as the context for helping us to shape the way forward as a highly effective, women-led philanthropic network and grant-making community. So before I talk about my vision for WFN and for our network as a whole, let me share a few more personal tidbits that you're not likely to find on Google. I just want to offer some insight into what has inspired my passion for social justice, equality, and intentional and invitational leadership. To begin with, I'm the 6th of 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls, and so, except that it's an even number, I do consider myself the middle child. So I was sort of the youngest of the first cohort, that's the word I learned at WFN, and the oldest of the second cohort. And I want to acknowledge that my youngest sister is here with me, Deborah, somewhere is in the hall. Where's Debbie? So if I tell any lies, she'll straighten me out later. But one of my jobs as an early young girl, growing up with both parents working, was to babysit my younger siblings, especially on Saturdays, which was the only day our mother could go grocery shopping. And we lived in the country, so grocery shopping wasn't down the road, and it wasn't on a bus. You had to get a car and drive 3 or 4 or 5 miles to the grocery store. And so on Saturday mornings is also cleanup morning, and my job was to manage these 4 siblings under me to sit down and be still so I could sweep the floor. And of course, as soon as I turned my back, they're jumping off the chairs and making me crazy. So I had to think about, how am I going to do this? Because when Mom gets home, I have to have my job done. So one of the advantages of having a lot of older siblings is music was a big part of our growing up. And so I loved the Shirelles, and I put on the Shirelles album, their greatest hits, and made these kids my backup singers. And so that became the incentive for them to behave. And I think that's an example of early leadership and realignment of your strategy. And I was 10. So a few years down the road, in those days, part of my real seminal training and awareness with social consciousness was being engaged in the NAACP Youth Council. You know, one of the things when you grow up in the country, there's not a lot of distractions, so anything that gets organized on your behalf, you take part in. So in addition to Girl Scouts and 4-H, the NAACP Youth Council was a very, very important part of my grooming and learning about leadership and organizing. So actually, it was there that, in that experience, I did my first civil rights march. We marched on our local public school. We had a township school system. They denied us the utility of the auditorium to have our regional youth council conference. And it was also the same age when I got my first job in the township library, where I discovered the Harlem Renaissance writers. I discovered James Baldwin in particular, The Fire Next Time, and I remember sitting in the stacks just reading the books and the poetry. And I was 14 years old, and that's when I feel like I thought of myself as a revolutionary and a change agent. So that was 14. And the final thing I want to share with you is in my senior year in high school, I was voted by my classmates to receive the Daughters of American Revolution Citizenship Award. So you can imagine. I'm not going to tell you the year because I'll be aging me, but you all can find that out on Google. However, DAR, when they found out who the school had nominated, denied the award. And you know, the school was a bit mortified. I mean, at least they pretended to be. I don't think they really were. But the American Legion created an alternative citizenship award and took me and my parents out for a dinner. But one thing that demonstrated to me is that my classmates who knew me voted for me. The people who didn't know me denied me. And all they knew was that the color of my skin disqualified me. And so I share that to say, at 17, that taught me resilience. And so, you know, realignment, rejuvenation, and resilience has become our theme for WFN this year. And I share that with you because in our personal lives, these things are also relevant. And I believe that also who we are is influenced not so much by our degrees and credentials, but by those defining experiences that give us a wellspring of internal assets and strength needed to navigate life's challenges and opportunities. So as I'm settling into my new role at WFN and have my moments, and I'll admit after 6 months, I've had some moments during my first 6 months, I find myself not thinking about my grad school skills and all the classes that I took, but more often about the people who raised me. My parents, my godmother, my Sunday school teachers, Miss Marshall, who lived to be 100, and I can still smell her perfume and powder, and Mr. Odie Adams, who was one of the few parents that had the car and had the time to drive us to those youth council meetings. And on the way every week, he would tell us we could be anything we wanted to be. So I'm just a simple country girl, but I love being engaged in social change. I love being engaged with people who share my values. And I can think of no other group or organization where my passions, my values, and my purpose could be more aligned and fulfilled than with the Women's Funding Network. So in the words of Maya Angelou, I wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. And so this is who I am. So thank you. The challenges we face in our communities are complex. The solutions require us to shift our way of working so that the value of our network is demonstrated through our power to bring about positive change for the communities and the people we care about, and that we have pledged to serve and advocate on behalf of. After all, we have an advantage that many others are currently seeking. We have a community of women in philanthropic leadership who are uniquely connected across the U.S. and the globe. Women who have shown a deep commitment to work together and whose focus on funding grassroots women-led organizations connects our work to the front lines of community. Women with extraordinary capacity for thought leadership and bold action on behalf of women and girls in need of economic investment and the social supports they need to be whole people, whole human beings who can claim their lives and live with agency. A recent article on collective impact in the Stanford Social Innovation Review lays out 5 conditions for collective success. Number 1, a common agenda, which means a shared vision for change and agreement on primary goals. Number 2, a shared measurement system. Now, I've heard a lot of comments about making the case, which I won't go into, but we have made an attempt to have a shared measurement system, so I'm not giving up on it. Mutually reinforcing activities, not uniform actions, but using our individual areas of expertise to coordinate with others in support of those primary goals. Number 4, continuous communication, webinars, regular meetings among the leadership and among our peers, cohorts for shared learning and training, newsletters, whatever the media is to communicate consistently and continuously is another ingredient. And finally, a successful network needs a successful collective action, requires a backbone support organization. So since I arrived at WFN, I know that, and even before I arrived, I think the board had gone through a process of trying to imagine and figure out how do we describe ourselves? Are we the thread? Are we the foundation? Are we the heart? Well, I think that according to Stanford, I think we very well may be the backbone. And the backbone, as you know, if the back is not strong, you can't stand. And so I want to invite you all to really look at us as not the leader, not the connector, not the heart, but we really do see ourselves as the backbone to lift up this entire community that's represented here in this room and beyond. So I want to say that based on those criteria, we have all the essentials in a very vibrant network ecology. All we need now is a roadmap and strategy to be poised for greater impact and success. We have one of the leading experts that's going to talk to us tomorrow, I believe, in plenary about collective impact. That's Jeff Kutash from FSG, and they're doing some of the leading work in this area in the country. So we're lucky to have an opportunity to learn about that together. And maybe he'll confirm or disabuse me of thinking that I landed on the right thing. I'm going to talk briefly about 3 things. Reflections, this current state of our network, at least a little bit that I know about the current state. And then finally, the vision for our way forward as a community.